A Build Hatch developed production.
Hello, I'm Aaron Kyle and welcome to another episode of Build Hatch. On this week's episode, I recorded this in a brand new project at Nelson Bay, which is in Port Stephens. Our guest on this week's episode is Ben Grover from Bluewater Stainless. Ben's business makes architectural glass and steel products, and you'll hear how Ben became involved in his business and how he just overcomes whatever challenges are thrown his way. As you'll hear, Ben's a good character and not afraid to have a go. Now let's get into it. Ben Grover, welcome to Build Hatch.
Grateful to be here, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
We're sitting here recording this podcast in this newly completed house looking straight out towards Nelson Bay, so it's an incredible view. Now, you're in the business of architectural glass and fabrication, and your business is called Bluewater Stainless. So, like all our guests on Build Hatch, we always like to take it back to the beginning. So, whereabouts did you grow up?
Mate, back in New Zealand, of all places, actually. So, born and raised in a little place called Matamata in the North Island of New Zealand. Came over here when I was 13, dragged over here kicking and screaming when I was 13 years old, did not want to leave the place. And then, mum and dad's like, oh no, we're going to this place called Port Stephens, you know. And like back then, we didn't use cameras that much. Especially in New Zealand, mate. We're like 20 years behind anyway. But, right. So we just packed up everything and we were over here in like less than a month, straight to a place called basically Fingal Bay. It's where I sort of moved to. And if you've been there or know it, it's an incredible little part of the world. Very, very quiet, but, amazing beaches and stuff like that. So, yeah, I suppose after a year or so of being here, I was like, oh, man, this is the best day. I'm so lucky to be here.
So what was the reason behind your parents coming to Port Stephens?
So my mum had some relatives here, so my aunties and uncles and stuff. They were based in Sydney, but sort of made their way up the coast to Nelson Bay area or Port Stephens, and they came over for a 40th birthday, and then decided that's it.
It's easy to fall in love with a place like this part of the world.
I can see what they did. It's pretty special. So and that was it, man. Straight into school, straight into high school for me, and at 13 years old, that was quite a struggle, being the only New Zealander at school. They took the pus out of me a lot and, had me saying fush and chups a lot. And, it was a pretty tough year. I lost my accent in about a year.
Was it beaten out of you?
No, it wasn't beaten out of me. Luckily, I was a decent-sized kid back then, so they didn't want to touch me. But, I was pretty lucky there, mate.
Did you have any aspirations on what you wanted to do once you sort of finished school?
Not really, not a clue. Like I always had a love and passion for sort of the Air Force, and I did a sort of cadetship for a few years there, but sort of fell off the wagon when you get to that age in life when there's girls and surfing and alcohol, especially in a little place like this. So that sort of fell off quickly, and I really enjoyed using my hands. I was always quite good with my hands, and I did a bit of work experience with a few builders in town here. My cousin who was living here at the time was actually a builder as well, so he sort of got me into a few places and just had a good time. Like I loved working hard. I loved working hard at that stage too. I still do, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was just sort of trying a few things, and then an opportunity came up through work experience at my school, and I did a 1 week work experience with a guy called Kevin Webber Sheet Metal over at George Road in Salamander Bay, and I loved what I was doing, and they loved how I worked. So that was it. I got an apprenticeship straight away. Left school at late 16, and yeah.
So you knew, I guess, that you were kind of that practical, hands-on guy.
Yep.
So you're always going to enter some particular trade.
I think so, yeah. It's really hard to sort of go back that far, but I think I always knew I was going to do something with my hands, just create something. I'm quite a creative, so yeah.
So you started off with that sort of sheet metal background.
Yep.
Is that, like, how long did you work for that company for?
I worked for Kevin for 5 years at that stage. It was fantastic. If you don't know what sheet metal working is, it's basically, it could be anything from your roof and guttering, flashings, that side of things, all the way down to your aluminium toolboxes, stainless steel fabrication, electrical enclosures, stuff like that. So we're using stuff like press brakes, turret punches, guillotines, all that sort of jazz, MIG welders, TIG welders. And I suppose that's how I got into really sort of found my niche, my real strength in that sort of field was sort of that stainless steel fabrication and TIG welding. I loved it. I just loved the finished product of how clean it was and how shiny, I suppose,
I think with that particular type of trade, it's always nice looking from the outside in because you can create anything really. Like to have that ability to be able to create something.
Yeah.
It's really endless, really, isn't it?
It is. You know, it was at that stage too, I suppose, fourth or fifth year of my trade, I was doing a lot of stuff for my friends, and boss was really good. He was letting me go in on weekends and just making whatever. So I spent a lot of my downtime just creating things, which was cool. I really had a passion for it, you know, but I suppose from then, my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, she went to the UK and I chased her over there basically and went, spent a year over there and just doing the same sort of thing. A lot of TIG welding, a lot of assembly in the UK. And once they found out I could operate press brakes, they threw me into the sort of the highest level or the most complex press brake that was in the UK at the time. So that was really cool.
So what's a press brake?
It's basically a CNC controlled press brake, just folds sheet metal up.
So it has like high strength ability to
like huge
shape
tonnage.
metal.
Yeah, like 100-ton press, but it's got like, all the stops and everything move, and it's all, can be calibrated and changed, and you can program 20 different things or more. Like now these days it'd be different. I'm not quite been out of the game for a little while now, so it's be a bit different. But at the time it was really cool. Nice to really dive into that side of things.
Going back to your apprenticeship, is that like a Boilermaker type apprenticeship?
Yeah, so there's two fabrications. There's light fabrication, which is sheet metal, and there's heavy fabrication, which is your boiler making. So yeah, we sort of do anything under sort of 6 mil plate, where the boilers do stuff from sort of 3 to whatever.
So there's basically like a sort of separated or two-tiered, if you like, approach to fabrication. Forms of fabrication. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, so you're over in the UK for what you said, a year?
Yeah, a year or so. That was fun. I used that as a bit of a base, hop around Europe and the Middle East and Africa and stuff. It was amazing. Had a great time, made some fantastic money, made some great mates and partied a lot, it was good. So came back here. I went back to work for my old boss, and I was there for a week. The poor bastard, he just took me on again. I thought, yeah, sweet, Ben's coming back. And I did it for a week, and like nothing changed. Like it was just the same shit. And I was like, I fucking can't do it, eh? So I went and hit a mate up across the road.
It's always going to be tough coming back from having a year abroad and having the time of your life, and then coming back home.
Totally. So I thought, look, I'll go and see my mate across the road. And he was looking for people, and he was doing structural fabrication, so more boiler making side of things. Dipped my toes in that for a year or so, and then got an opportunity to go and work for a stainless steel company here. At the time, it was called Always Stainless. They've been around for quite a long time. Had a really good reputation for building really high end quality products. So, stuff like stainless steel kitchens and domestic houses. Stainless steel balustrades back then was quite big. And a lot of marine work at that time too. So we're doing all your exterior stainless steel metal work. You've seen that real shiny stuff on yachts, and I love that. It was really good to sort of learn that craft, because I haven't really done that to that sort of level.
And it's kind of funny. It's not until you actually start to look around and see how much houses and commercial buildings feature stainless steel.
That's right. Yeah, especially a lot of the builds that we do now is most of them are waterfront properties. So the builders that are working on these things need to have that mentality. Like they're building a fucking boat. Like it needs to be, marine ready, so it can last the test of time. So you see a lot of stainless steel elements on these things, and a lot less steel.
Okay, so if I was listening to this and I wanted to know, well, why stainless steel and why is stainless so common near coastal environments? Why is that?
So stainless steel's just got a higher amount of chromium in it, which basically gives us corrosion resistance. Yeah, so the higher the finish on the stainless steel as well. So there's a couple of components to it. So there's stainless steel, which could be like a mill finish or like a brush finish or whatever. It could be in 316, which is a marine grade. It'll still T-stain outside in a coastal environment, yeah?
So T-staining, for those that are listening to this, is that sort of stain that you can see, the brownish sort of colour that you often see after rain events or long-term corrosion.
Yeah, that's right. So the higher the finish on that material though, so the higher the polish, from that sort of real base level polishing stages up to mirror finish, like the higher the finish that you have, the better corrosion resistance you will have.
And so how's that achieved? Is that like a type of polishing?
It is, yeah. Basically, you can buy back in the day, you couldn't buy anything pre-polished. It was all done by hand. And I remember the time, man, it was fucking painful. having to hand polish this material. Now, luckily, I'd say 50% of the stainless steel on the market you can get, not even that, I'd say 30%, but it's still all the tube material is polished to mirror finish.
So you can basically buy the basic elements.
Yep.
Or in your company, which is highly specialized and makes custom elements, I'd imagine you're actually having to buy those elements, but then custom manufacture the rest.
Yeah, exactly right. So, we'll get it all in a mirror finish, or if it's not already polished, there's a couple of companies in Sydney that'll polish it for you. Saves us doing it by hand, which is great. Got amazing machines that'll do that for us. We'll get it up here, do our fabrication and then finish all the polishing before on-site installation. But even then, there's still some on-site fabrication that'll have to happen.
All right, so here you were, you'd just come back from your whirlwind journey. You'd just come back from the UK after having a year over there. Yeah. You'd settled back into local life, working for your old boss. Then what happened?
Yeah, so working for my old boss, went back into that. I went to do some structural steel for a while, cut my teeth on that. That was fun. And then, I got a job working for a company called Bluewater Stainless, who specialise in sort of the high-end architectural metalwork and marine work, here in the Bay. So they service a lot of places like Newcastle and Sydney as well, which was quite cool. So we bought a house at Lemon Tree Passage at the time. And then I think I worked for Paul for about 3 or 4 years, to the point where I was sort of running the workshop very loosely. Didn't have that foreman role, but I was sort of managing people. And I just got fucking itchy feet. I thought, I've got to go. I can't keep doing this. I just, you're 25 years old still. I think, fucking my whole life ahead of me. Let's go and do something else. So we didn't have any jobs. My wife and I, we said, I'm going to Dubai. I fucking love it. Like you did, we spoke earlier. It's just so enticing, and it's just drew me into this.
It's an inspiring part of the world. It's just everything's going on. Yeah. Nothing's a problem.
Yeah. And I had no idea what I was going to do, to be honest. I just built a bit of a CV. I did a bit of a PowerPoint presentation. Didn't organise anything before I left. We just were going, right? So quite risky. Got our feet on the ground in Dubai, and my wife got a job straight away. She was hairdressing at the time, and I think I floundered around for about a month before I actually got some work with a marine company over there, and just doing a lot of sort of mechanical stuff on yachts and decorative metalwork as well. So it was really good just to cut my teeth there. And
so being Dubai, I guess, were they like super yachts?
Dude, there were super yachts in the mix, but there were these things called dhows. I don't know if you've seen those old timber dhows over there. These old timber boats.
Yeah, like gondolas, like similar to that.
I suppose, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what that is, but these huge old timber boats. Man, these things are 150 feet long, all built by hand. These guys are on the ground. These old carpenters from Pakistan are just in there carving timber between their legs with these fucking axe things. I remember it clear as day. It was just like, man, we're in the fucking 21st century now. Like, what are you doing? Grab some power tools. They've still got the old drills, and they're going like this, putting their holes in the fucking. I'm like, righto, build it the traditional way, no worries, So that was what I was sort of up against. And when I got there, I've got Indians and Pakistani fellas and Filipinos, and they're all good guys, super keen to work. But
great work ethic.
I'll work all day, mate. They could fabricate to a point. It was just so clunky and backwards, though. Like I said, these guys are working on the ground between their legs trying to polish stainless steel, and their idea of polished stainless steel to mine was completely different too. So completely unaware of the new methods that were around today. So I had to go through and just train those guys up, and it was a hell of a learning experience. Hey, just dealing with and managing people and the language barriers and stuff, and I got quite good at sign language, doing sketches, and it was interesting. So that was, I think I did that for a year or so. Once you're in that industry, you're the only white face in fabrication doing yachts there. So the word gets around pretty quick, in the sort of luxury yacht area over there. So I was sort of mixing it up with all the luxury yacht captains and stuff. And
that would have been amazing.
It was cool, man. Yeah, so I had a lot of fun. Got a job for a company called Palm Marine over there. They were building up to sort of 60-foot yachts, just glass yachts, fiberglass yachts over there. So I was building all their decorative metalwork and sort of stainless steel systems below the deck, and that was cool. And then that company went under. So that was a real shame. And then we came home again for a wedding, and then shot back over there to Dubai. And I picked up another job with a company called Green Line Yacht Interiors. So they specialised in some epic yacht interiors for these yachts in like Europe and all over the world. Basically, they had these factories there which were all fully air conditioned. Like we're talking, 300 meter long factories, and wide enough to do a 1-to-1 scale mock up of these interiors. And then they just strip them all down, put them in a container, and send them off to Europe to get fitted out. It was intense.
Incredible.
So I ran a little shop over there with 30 guys. Same thing, Filipinos, Indians, and Pakistani fellas, and a couple of Sri Lankans as well. I shouldn't leave those guys out. But I was lucky. The budget was quite big. I was able to go through and procure some, great gear. Water jets, CNC routers, whatever I needed to get the job done. It was just like go and do it. So
particularly in that part of the world, you can get anything you need, really.
Pretty well, yeah. There was a lot of the finer stuff that I knew about was not readily available, so I was getting a lot of stuff in from Europe. So yeah, did that for a year and a bit, and then just due to some personal reasons, we had to go back to Australia again.
So I guess if I could pick, say, a yacht, what elements of, say, a yacht would involve like that heavy fabrication outside of the actual shell itself?
I mean, when you look at a luxury yacht these days, you'll see all the stuff on the outside. So all your stainless steel bow rails and
so basically any exposed metal
yep.
on a yacht or
yep.
in that marine environment has to be stainless.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Well, let's go back to that last company that I was working for. Like I was doing all the decorative metalwork in that thing, and it was just amazing. Some of the details these designers were putting out there, and just having the opportunity to fabricate some of them, just using the highest technology and some really good skilled labour to create fucking what is art, I think, on these yachts. Like the biggest one we did, I'll drop the name of this yacht. It was called Eclipse, and at the time it was the largest luxury yacht in the world. It was 470 foot long or something. It was intense. So yeah, real privilege, and I feel quite honoured to be able to, say that I've done some work on these big boats,
Well, that kind of ties into what I was referring to before, where you have that specialised trade. I mean, you just say stainless steel, but you mentioned the word art, and I think that's one interesting aspect of your work is you're actually creating something.
Yep.
You're able to create something. Yes, you might be able to combine some elements that are prefabricated, but that's really just to, I guess, improve efficiencies in your business.
Yeah.
You're putting the icing on the cake with those finishing touches and creating something that's custom made. So you are right when you say the word art.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's quite an artistic trade. Has there ever been something where you've had someone come to you with an image or a plan or a photo or something and say, hey, Ben, can you make this? And you thought, wow, I don't know about that.
Not so much. I've got a bit of a personality that sort of just attracts that sort of stuff, and I love it. I love the challenge. Doesn't usually work out for me. They're not really that profitable, But my passion is just building staircases and stuff for houses, and just getting the opportunity to go through and work on the design with the architects if needed, and make it work, make their vision work. You know what I mean? We'll get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
So you came back to the Bay at some point and started your business. How did you do that? Did you take a plunge, or did you know someone? Yeah, so when I came back from Dubai, it was 2010, I think it was. I knew a guy. No, there was another stainless steel fabrication place in the Bay before I left, and I knew the guy quite well. His name's Gary Sharp, good fella. And I was just annoying him a little bit. I was sort of annoying him before I came back because I knew I was coming back, so I was trying to line something up. And I think I was back for a couple of weeks, and he said, "Yeah, come on, let's do some stuff together." So we started working together, and after a few years, I think Gary was a bit tired of what he was doing, so I was given the opportunity to buy the business off him then. So I guess working in that fabrication environment, how would one typically, I guess, engage your services? Do they have a plan, or do they have something they come to you? Like I mentioned, do they bring a photo or an image of something and say, Ben, can you make this? Like, what's a typical client?
Typical client these days, just the sort of market that we're in, is all comes from the architect. We're not getting spec'd up on jobs, but we're sort of the go-to around here for that quite technical detail.
So are they approaching you in the early days of a project, like an architect saying, look, we've got this job, we're thinking about this kind of balustrade or feature?
Yeah.
Do they get involved with you sort of in the early stages?
Yeah, never used to, but it's becoming more common now, and I'm trying to push that. We're really trying to, and not so much for, to make sure I get the work, just to make sure the details are done right at the start, because, there's so many things that could be overlooked in the sort of design and planning stage of a build that could get missed, which is critical to us making the components work, so to speak, So
I particularly think in, say, if I could pick an example in your field, such as balustrades, if people don't consider that early on, there's a fair chance there might not be the right fixing methodology to be able to attach those balustrades, because like this home, looking out where we're recording this at the moment, these balustrades aren't fixed on top of the balcony surface. They're fixed on the side of the building facade. That's
right. So there's also all those sorts of things to consider. You're making sure we've got plenty of blocking there that, it may need engineering too. It might be such a sort of left field design that it sort of needs an engineer's sign off, and budget as well. Like, we want to put this balustrade on, and we'll worry about that later on down the track when we get there, right? But you've got to make sure you've got a budget for that thing at the start. Like, this is basically the jewel on your finger. If you don't have the money for it at the end, you're going to have some sort of proprietary item that you're just not going to be happy with, So,
and that's important because you are dealing with glass and metal, so they're not cheap items.
No, they're not. And people just don't realise how much time and effort and obviously material costs go into this sort of work.
So the concept to buy your business from the former owner Gary, how did that come about? Were you sort of always thinking that, or did you want to work for yourself? How did that work?
Never really had any. I'm not going to say I didn't have any ambition to work for myself. I just always thought, and I shouldn't say this, I just always thought I could do it better. You know what I mean? Like, I just saw so many gaps back then, and don't worry, like I wasn't.
You weren't toe cutting or anything like that. That just comes back to having, I guess, a good work ethic where you're thinking, well, I could maybe do this better, and continuously trying to improve the product for the end user or create more efficiencies.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the biggest drivers in my career has always been like, I've always been told you won't do this or you can't do it. It won't happen. And I'm like fuck, I'll do it. I'll make sure I do it. You watch, So that's always been a hell of a driver and still is.
So do you think maybe that in hindsight, perhaps the owner saw a bit of potential there and thought, well, I'm thinking about getting out.
Yeah, for sure.
Ben has a bit of potential there. Maybe I should have that conversation with him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Gary was going through some stuff at the time, and it was just a bit tired of it. And so I was sort of, the last year or so, I was sort of acting as caretaker for the business anyway. So had a fair idea how to run it to a point. And it was a bit of a no-brainer for him. It worked out really good for both of us.
So I guess that name was partly established.
Yep.
What did you do then as a business owner taking over this new business for yourself? What did you do after that?
Mate, just tried to, it was really just doing the work, just showing up and doing it. There was no real, I didn't have any sort of idea of how to grow a business.
Because you were this hands-on practical person with a bit of life experience at that point.
100%. I had a really good fabrication ability. I could visualize a product. I was really good with people and talking to people, so I was able to get work quite easily. I think one of the biggest things that have sort of slowed me down has just been selecting the right trades to come and work with me, and that's been the hardest part of growing my business.
So how many employees were in the business back then when you took over?
There would have been only 3 of us. It was really small. And there was a point when there was just me and one other guy. It was just so hard to get guys. But
so how do you manage that? I mean, if you get asked to quote up a job or go out to site and have a look, you've got someone working in the factory or the workshop. How do you manage that? Like your time and getting out of work and trying to fit in with all these other demands?
Just doing probably what you've done and every other sort of business owner's done in the past. You're doing a ridiculous amount of hours, nearly 7 days a week.
Just make it work.
Just do it. So I was still doing maybe at least 10 hours on the floor a day, and then the rest of the time was sort of running around pricing stuff up, measuring jobs, going home at night quoting. And that wears you down. That can wear the family life down a lot. So yeah, just made some really conscious decisions about changing that and just sort of getting out of that pattern, because it's not healthy when you've got small kids too. I think my eldest was about 3 at the time. So
they're those young years of the kids, and it's tough, like trying to juggle that as the man and being a provider of the family. You've got these little kids, you're trying to put food on the table, plus put out all these other spot fires in your business. Like, it's pretty tough, isn't it?
It's really tough. Yeah, it's been a hell of a journey. Yeah.
So how did you get through it? Like, did you have anyone to talk to back then, or like if you were going through a tough time, did you talk to anyone about it?
There's always people. I've always sort of surrounded myself with good people and people that are in the know. So I've always had sort of mentors to fall back on or ask questions to. And I was sort of pointed to a business coach back in the day. I would have been maybe 4 years ago. Who sort of came in and sort of really helped me to just systemize a few things, and just sort of changed my trajectory a lot. I also made one very key hire at that time. Beautiful Kathy Davis. She's amazing. She's now our sort of ops manager at work, but she's been with me for 4 years now and is absolutely the glue that keeps that place together. She's so switched on and so passionate. As passionate as I am about doing what we do. So, and
that's particularly hard to find as a business owner as well.
Yeah,
that drive and determination that you're looking for.
Yeah, she works as hard as anyone does. It's incredible. So, yeah, very very lucky for her to find me.
As touched on earlier, it is quite a broad business, and you do a lot of different aspects of the building industry. So, if you're sort of advertising to grow or take on people, what's it like advertising, or is it more word of mouth?
It's a bit of both, to be honest. Like, we've tried all avenues as far as trying to get people to come and work for us. I've done stuff myself personally, just calling out for help on social media, and which actually worked quite well. I might do another one of those. We've done the Seek thing. There's another one as well. I forgot what it's called. But you just get the wrong people applying. People who don't have work for a reason applying for work. You know what I mean? So it's quite hard to find people who are across everything as well. They might be good at one specific thing, but they don't know about carpentry or an installation component, or they can't weld aluminium. So it's bloody hard, man.
Yeah, it's such a diverse aspect and a pretty broad trade, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So there is a lot of that hands-on.
Well, that's why I love it too. It's just nothing is like, no one day is the same as the next. I love that. Just so diverse. Just keeps it fresh.
Is there someone that inspires you, or sort of keeps you going through tough times?
Yeah, my wife for sure. She's incredible, mate. She's my absolute soulmate, and through tough times, we just get together and knuckle down and just reassure each other that doesn't matter what happens, we're still got each other, So, and I'm got a great little family now, man. I'm just working really hard for those guys and my wife to make sure I don't let them down.
Yeah, it's an important aspect just to have that motivation and not only the emotional support, but just something to drive for and work for.
Yeah, definitely.
Running your type of business, which we've already talked about, it's quite a diverse and very broad business. What sort of qualities do you need to have?
That's been one of my issues lately, is trying to just hold the quality that I used to hold, obviously not being on the floor as much as I used to be, and being able to see everything that leaves the workshop. I do have some guys that work under me in sort of leadership and management roles that are all across that, but things do get missed now, which is really frustrating for me because I'm so passionate about the quality that we do pump out. We're sort of working towards being a company that does run some sort of ISO system down the track, but it might be a year or so away yet.
What about in your type of business, going from say single houses or townhouses? What's it like making a leap to like a really large job?
It was really fucking scary. We're going from biggest job was maybe 50 grand, which was big back then, and to a job where you might be, your component of that job might be 250 to 300 grand on a residential house. It's insane, and these things pop up all the time now. It's just common. I suppose because we are able to get across so many different areas, it's great for the builder.
I think you're in a good spot too, because you are in the Port Stephens area. You have a diverse mix of multi-million-dollar holiday homes, and you're able to also service Newcastle, Sydney, and the Hunter Valley as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's really good. It's good for the builder as well. Like he's not having to go through and just, he might have to get 6 different trades or subcontractors sometimes just to do all those components, where he can just come to us and we can tackle everything.
You have quite a few challenges with your business because I guess you're dealing with custom designed and fabricated products. So people are coming to you with, before they've even come to you, there's a challenge there.
Yes.
It's not bread and butter type building stuff. Everything about your work is custom. So I think I take my hat off to you because in the short space of time sitting here talking to you, running a business is completely different in this field compared to, say, being on the floor managing the guys and going, righto guys, we've got some shop drawings made up.
Yeah.
So to be able to then manage that and then have that complicated world of delivering something to that high quality, I imagine it's pretty tough.
It's really tough, yeah. Shop drawings, wow, wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? We're still not at a stage now where I can actually have a full-time draftsperson there to create these things. But
and I guess for anyone listening to this who's wondering what shop drawings are, I guess in a practical sense, you'll have like an engineer or an architect who'll design an elevation or even a section, something that sort of helps describe what they want. You're then able to, I guess, quote from that. But to deliver something that your guys in the workshop can then build, you need to have like a draftsman or draftsperson to create scaled plans to show how every nut and bolt works or how the finish looks. Yeah,
exactly right. And, in a lot of cases we do know that, but there's some cases we just can't, not can't, it's just easier just to fabricate it on, not even on the fly, just come up with a concept, put it on paper, literally we don't have to do a layout on the floor, and just everything's sort of one-to-one layout, and then it just evolves from that, So yeah, it is tricky. So one day we will get this draftsperson, this magical draftsperson will come into my life, but a little while away from yet.
How do you deal with glass? Like, it's obviously very non-flexible structure. So how do you deal with glass?
Wow, thanks. Good question. I love glass. But you've only got one shot at it, especially with toughened glass. So you've got to make sure, especially on things like this staircase down here, and every single panel is custom on an angle to size, holes in the right positions. It takes one measurement to be out, and it's the panel glass is stuffed. Panel of glass there is about $400, So you've got to make sure your original set out is done right. You're able to convert everything to drawings. We actually do have somebody that can convert to CAD, so we can order it. But there's a couple of processes there. If one dimension's out on any of those processes, you've got to redo it.
So I'd imagine when someone's coming to you with glass balustrade in their particular project, you're actually the one wearing the responsibility of making sure, even though you're ordering it, like you're ordering those glass panels, you're carrying the responsibility, if you like, for making sure that they're right.
That's right. And it's all part of the original quote. And to be competitive, there's not even that much room for error. To be honest, I can't just say, I'll just whack an extra $500 on just in case.
You're buying products like large, costly items from third-party suppliers, and then you've got this labour component. So your particular industry is very labour reliant. So that's on the other end of the stick. You've got these two costly trades or aspects of your business. So if you get it wrong, not only measurement related, but the amount of time it takes to fabricate, that's a pretty tough gig.
It's a tough gig, yeah. We won't know the panel's wrong until you go to install it. So I'm seeing a team of 3 or 4 guys out to install this piece of glass and to realise that, we can't install it now. We've got to come back to the workshop and reorder it. It's another 2 weeks. So you're not only losing out on labour on the day, you're losing out on labour that could be spent somewhere else, being productive and making me money. You're losing on the opportunity to invoice on time as well. So everything blows out. It's a really tough gig.
So when you're quoting a job, like, how do you allow for the right amount of labour with your particular job?
Labour's not too bad.
Because you're fabricating something custom, so it's easy coming from you because you've done it yourself.
Well, I'll go back to trying to be competitive with other subcontractors as well. I can't go in there and just. That's the thing. No one's like me on site. I will come in there and as much as I've been on the tools for a while, like I can say, yeah, this job's going to take this long. This is how long I would do it. I'll give you all the tools to do that, but it never works out. It usually always blows over to some extent. I can't allow a certain amount of hours for another guy to do it in 10 or more hours. I just won't get the job. So it's really bloody tricky. It is, but it's just a matter of just building these guys up, letting them get the experience to the point where they can get up to where I was, So yeah, it's a tough old gig, man. You're right.
I think it's important too that you convey that creativity and artistic approach, and I think when you're managing your people that they also are aware of their kind of work and how it's appreciated, and you're a finishing trade as such, so you've got to be smack bang on the money with everything that you do.
Yeah. Some people just don't get that, hey? Like it's the whole finishing trade concept. You've got to be on your A game. Like you drop something on the timber floor, or a bit of weld spatter goes on the timber floor, you got to pull boards up and re-sand the whole floor. Like it's
and that's important because you are coming in a lot of the time after
paint, after floors, after it's like not only are we carrying heavy bits of shit around, we are doing hot works,
and they're sharp, so scratching something.
That's right. Yeah. It's a tough gig, man. Yeah. I forget sometimes how tough it is. So no, I appreciate taking me back there.
It happens. So how do you differentiate yourself with your competitors? I mean, you mentioned before about the commitment to getting the job done and finishing, and so what's it like?
Look, it's hard to differentiate myself from other competitors because there are other guys out there that can do what I can do. I suppose I hope my passion shines through for what I do. If you've seen what I do, you can see the finished product, and like not a lot of people would be up for that sort of challenge. To be honest, it's just fucking too hard basket. So I think that is the difference. To be honest, that we are super passionate about what we do. We do top quality work, and a lot of the stuff we do is just way too technical for people to even want to try because they just know it's not going to be profitable. So I've just got to get myself into a position in business where I can charge a little bit more, but this is what you're going to get. So it's just really about educating the client as to what the finished product's going to be. I suppose educating them, and just you spoke about it, just how hard it is to actually get to the finish line and why you're paying this much and the risk involved from my side to get there. It's a tricky one.
With your trade being that customized, creative type product, I'd imagine it gets a bit frustrating because you're running a business and the guys that work on the tools and have that ability to create those custom type fabrications like you do, they do find it hard to take that step and wear the business hat because you enjoy the creativity side of your business, but then behind the scenes, managing quotes, paying bills, paying people, it's probably completely contrast to what you're doing on site.
Yeah.
As silly as it sounds, but it is quite a big contrast.
And that's some of the things I need to educate my guys about too. They probably think, where the hell's Ben? What's he doing? Swanning around having coffees with people. Like it's not the case at all. I'm working so hard to make sure I get working for these guys, making sure they got clear information and that everything else is going on behind the scenes. Like they won't see me for a few days sometimes. I've got guys there that can run the place when I'm not there, but like especially if I'm tendering bigger projects or quoting some really technical jobs, I need to have my head in the game and get those details right. Otherwise, I can miss something and I can do my ass on a job.
Now, you mentioned glass staircases. So we have to give a shout out to the builder on this particular project. So it's almost waterfront. It overlooks Nelson Bay, as I mentioned. So who's the builder for this particular job?
A lovely gentleman called Sean Richards.
We recorded a previous episode in another one of his holiday houses. How did you get the work with this one? Do you have a bit of a relationship with Sean?
Yeah, Sean and I go way back, actually. I did some work for him before I went to Dubai for this other company, and I've always known of his work, and I actually did some work on his old house down at Soldiers Point. Sort of when I came back, I think he may have got wind that I came back. I'm not sure if he had a relationship with Gary Sharp at that time, but for whatever reason, we started getting Sean's work again, which was great. He was doing houses like this, mate, which is pretty special. And as our sort of experience grew in Bluewater Stainless, and I suppose our area opened up, sort of scope of works, I should say. We're able to tackle quite a lot of different components of these houses for him, so it's a no-brainer for him, mate. And we've built some cool stuff together. Yeah.
What sort of work were you involved in with this particular project?
At the start, very early on, we were involved in just sort of setting out the pool fence. We were doing all the glass for that. The pool wall, I don't know if you've seen that. We've got some
I
images.
did. So as you walk in, you sort of walk up this driveway, and one of the standout features of this project is you see this amazing pool with where you can see straight through. It's got the glass end piece.
Yeah, a huge piece of glass, about, was it 400 or 500 kilos this thing was. So that was logistical nightmare to get in. And I was shitting myself the whole time. please fit. That sort of scenario. So that was cool. That's our second big pool wall that we've done for Sean. All the glass balustrade here and all the internal staircase is pretty cool too. So that was glass was all done by Brad, our construction manager. He sort of templated that and fitted it all up. And I came in with one of my apprentices, did all the handrail.
Now you mentioned that pool glass panel. That's becoming more and more common now. People want this great look, particularly with infinity type pools. So what's the process with that? Like, it's a custom concreted pool.
Yep.
And then you make glass to fit that sort of groove, or what's involved in that?
Exactly. So, I mean, it was part of the designer on this one was Tyron Bell. So it was part of his sort of brief. He wanted this piece of glass at the front of his pool. So the rebate was set up in the concrete when the concrete was done. Basically just measured it up.
So do they talk to you and say, look, we want 30 mil or 20 mil, whatever it is?
So I've got to go to an engineer from that point, and then they'll spec up what sort of thickness and see all the loads and stuff that go along with having a piece of glass in the end of a pool.
Do you have to allow like a certain tolerance so your glass isn't sort of scraping as it's going in, or like how close do you need to get it?
Exactly. So the pocket was about 60 mil wide. The glass was about 35. So we've got a bit of tolerance there, but you can still imagine like it's a $10,000 piece of glass dropping into a pocket. If you knock a corner, it could just blow up. Once we just lower it into position, it just gets set up, level, plumb, all that sort of stuff. And we just wet grout it in, form it up and grout it in, and then the pool guys come along and do their thing, tile up to it.
Right.
Yeah. It's not that difficult. It's just really fucking risky. Because if it goes wrong, it goes real wrong, you know.
And like, do you have to crane it in?
Yes. Yeah. So we got a franner in the front to get it up the driveway. Actually had to sort of climb up the driveway and then get into position.
Well, these are all the things that people don't see or hear about, because we've got this steep driveway and access is tight, and you're trying to get all these machines. Plus, you're dealing with glass. So, how do you crane a piece of glass in with? Where do you clamp onto it? Like, what do you do?
We've got a company we use in Sydney called Sydney Glass Lifters. They've got a series of lifting equipment, and we just use their basic things for a lot of lifts. Just a 6-pad vacuum lifter. So we'll hire that for a week, get it up here, organise the glass will come up to the driveway basically. Franners here set up, and we just go from there.
So it just, I guess, vacuums both sides of the panel.
Just one side of the panel.
Oh, one side.
Yeah. So the arm just tilts up, just lifts from the centre there. So
what's it like when it's 10 metres off the ground?
Yeah, shit myself. I'm still very nervous about it, hey. It's lifting glass, but I don't know if that'll ever go away, to be honest.
I think you're very lucky in that, because you are that finishing trade. When people walk into the house, glass is that striking feature that people get to touch and feel, and touching and feeling glasses takes a lot to clean.
Don't touch my glass.
Yeah. But it is, you are very lucky in that you see it as soon as you arrive at this amazing house. You look up, you see the striking glass on the front balustrade, and you have the pool feature as well. And then you walk inside, and there it is on that amazing staircase as well. Amazing.
Yeah, we're lucky. Like, it's usually the centerpiece of a house. It's one of the first things you'll see, and it's just fucking the jewel in the crown, mate. It's amazing. It is art. Like that one we did for Sean out there at Soldiers Point Road, which you went through. And that staircase was fucking awesome. It was epic. And just for all those little details to come together and create that centerpiece of that house was, pretty special.
Even standing on the glass, like that's always not an uncomfortable thing, but it's a confronting thing. So designing something is one thing, but actually building it so that people can walk on it with their shoes and they're not going to break it or put a high heel through it, or there's a lot in it.
That just the treads alone, they were 40 mil thick, triple lam. Like, you never go through it.
What's it like looking back now with your business from, I guess, coming back from overseas and setting up shop? And
something I don't do a lot of is sort of reflecting back on where we've come from. But no, we've done amazing things, hey? Like I'd like to be further ahead in my business, obviously making more profit, or making a profit would be fantastic. But we've made some great, I suppose, capital investment along the way. We've moved to a better facility now. We've got some great people, sort of core team now. So I'm really proud of that. So we're at a point in our business now where we're just we're ready to sort of, I suppose, shift up a gear as well. We've had a lot of things in the background getting built, and obviously moving factories and all that sort of thing, and big projects on the go, which we've sort of completed, where we can sort of, I suppose, consolidate again, sort of refocus, get back in line with our values, and start driving again. So it's actually a really exciting time for me.
You've been very fortunate and quite strategic and I'm not sure if that's been 100% intentional, but you've got that house at Soldiers Point, which is a holiday home. So that's one market. Plus you're covering those commercial aspects as well. So I think it's important to be strategic in how you cover all bases in those different markets. Yeah, definitely. And the commercial side of it really does sort of interest me, and it interests my guys as well. They're quite keen to jump into it. We're just still learning the craft of how to deal with these guys. Learned some pretty good lessons along the way in the last year or so, dealing with these bigger builders and these, obviously shorter time frames and I suppose bigger contracts, So look, there's a lot of work out here in Newcastle. As much as COVID's affected it a little bit, there's still a lot of work for everyone to do. And I'm just out there building relationships with these guys and hopefully get a start building some more art in Newcastle. I think that's important, and managing up and going to those people and approaching them and saying, this is what I can do. And you've got the clientele, you've got the completed product. So it's just about being strategic and gelling that together. You've got the right people behind you. So it's just about managing up those relationships from the ground. It is, yeah. It's something I'm actually quite passionate about and quite good at, I think. So I'm told, is just building relationships and really connecting with people. So it's been good, been a great experience, and I suppose just sort of learning that sort of power, that sort of superpower, if you know what I mean. It's not something that sort of came naturally to me. It's sort of something that sort of derived over years of practice, but like starting to see those relationships build, and it's really cool, And just giving, I've got some really good guys that work for me as well, and just sort of giving them the space to do what they need to do as well, instead of dropping in on those guys all the time. So I'm sort of able to really focus on what I can do at the front end to get more work in and then build these relationships. And I just know that these guys are doing their job now. There's a lot of trust there, And giving them that ownership of their task and that breathing space, like you said. Yeah. It's very important. It is. It's super important. So I may have done a bit too much of that the last couple of years, a bit maybe managing a little bit passively, but sort of learnt from those lessons now. Well, that's important. And I particularly like with your business, and I can see where those qualities come from in terms of if I'm a client and I'm looking at a custom design piece of balustrade or a set of stairs that gets used probably 20, 50 times a day, you need to have that confidence in the person who's actually installing that end piece of furniture. Yeah, for sure. Look, it's an amazing house. Sean Richards has done an incredible job. It's this architectural, custom-built home, incredible pool, views, an amazing outlook to Port Stephens and the water, and everyone will be able to go online and see some incredible photos after this podcast. All right, Ben, well, I appreciate you coming on to Build Hatch, sharing your story. It's been truly inspiring listening to your story. So well done on your story, and thanks again for coming on to Build Hatch. Thanks so much for having me, mate. It was a really great experience, and mate, I wish you all the best in your pursuit of sharing your stories with the world. It's great. As you can tell by my conversation with Ben, he's a lot of fun and really enjoys his line of work. As you can now appreciate, building a customised product with high-end finishes is not an easy business to be involved in. As usual, please check out our Instagram, where you'll be able to learn more about our guests and the features of their project, which we talk about on the show. Have a great week, and you'll hear me again on the airwaves next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Build Hatch.
You have experienced a Build Hatch developed production.